Good day, ladies and gentlemen of the press. We're actually here to prove to you the fraud that has been committed by INEC on the proposed ward delineation in Warri Federal Constituency as a result of the proposed document presented to us on the 4th of April this year, 2025. And as you can see on my hands, I have the document as presented by INEC. We have the first one here for Warri South, local government, duly signed, endorsed by INEC. And we also have the next one here for Warri North. And we also have for Warri Southwest. Now, these were the documents presented to us by INEC. And we're going to be doing the practical work of verification of these coordinates as presented by INEC. It's a practical work that everyone can join us to conduct. Now, these coordinates as presented to us are carrying names of different communities. So we want to find out how true these documents are. The veracity of what INEC has done is what we're going to be doing today. If you have your Google Earth map in your phone, or you don't have it, you can install from a Google Play Store so that you can join us to this practical work. Now, as you can see from your screen, it's a brief summary of the anomalies and illegalities in INEC proposal for delineation of Warri Federal Constituency as presented by Warri Reclamation Trust. And of course, we are the representative of Warri Reclamation Trust. My name is Brighton Maloney, and I have with me
Shaya David.
My name is Comrade Daily White of Masanjuma Esimone.
Yes, during the presentation of this proposed ward delineation document to members of the Warri Federal Constituency, INEC told us that they did a practical work by visiting each and every of these communities to carry out their delineation work, getting coordinate plotted. But as we can now see from our own verification, it is a different ball game entirely. And of course, this is what we're going to be presenting to you in this particular broadcast. Now, this is a brief summary of the anomalies and illegalities in INEC proposal for the delineation of Warri Federal Constituency presented by Warri Reclamation Trust. Now, we're going to be looking at the scope of our job, how we carry out this job. Now, our scope entails using the coordinates provided by INEC in our proposed ward delineation to verify the actual location and name of the said coordinates and units as established by INEC using a Google Earth map on the internet, as well as using hard copy of Delta State, Warri, and Shell maps. Now, our overall observation shows a deliberate fraud in the entire delineation process and a total lack of compliance to INEC own guidelines in the execution of this ward delineation. Now, we're going to look at the summary of what we uncovered, the fraud we uncovered in this particular ward delineation carried out by INEC. Now, we found out that in this particular work, creating and renaming of Aboriginal and legal communities. INEC has no power, for example, to create communities, but yes, these were what we uncovered in this particular verification. We also saw duplication of communities. One community can be duplicated into 50, even 100 as the case may be, to make up several units to make up a ward. We also have number 3, for example, where we have creation of fictitious communities from units that make up wards. Just like I said earlier on, we also have importation of communities from outside the 3 Warri local government area. For example, communities from Burutu, Pomadi, Ughelli South, Udu in Delta State, and also communities from Edo and Ondo State were imported into the Warri Federal Constituency. Some imported from Edo and Ondo constituted what they now have under Warri North local government area, and those imported from Burutu, Ughelli South, constituted part of what they now have in Warri Southwest. Number 5, we also have illegal boundary adjustment, which of course INEC has undertook in this particular work, because INEC, took over the job of boundary adjustment by illegally, adjusting different boundaries for different communities and different local government areas. We also have manufacturing of voting units outside the voters' register. One cannot tell where INEC manufactured these new units and what from, since none of such units existed in any voter register. Of course, you and I know that INEC cannot determine population of any unit or voting center without considering the voter register. Of course, that is how you tell that this particular unit has increased in size as a result of more persons registering in that unit. But where such is not being considered, one will want to ask, where did INEC get these numbers from? We also have another one here, number 7, the use of same coordinate for multiple units in different wards, in different local government areas. For example, a particular coordinate can reappear or surface in several local government areas. The one that has surfaced in Warri North, for example, in a particular ward, you find them surfacing again in Warri Southwest and being duplicated to make up the ward. Number 8 on our list, we have many of the wards created and renamed for the just and robust were won from land mass and communities of Ishekiri that were renamed. This is another alarming, exposition that we find out, that many of the communities now created as units under certain wards in Warri North, for example, were all Ishekiri communities, same as Warri Southwest and Warri South. What do? They just pick up the community, change the name, and replace it with an Ijo or Robo name, and build it under a particular word to say this is now a word belonging to the Ijos or the Urobos. Now let's go to number 9. Forest and River were pinned in the coordinates provided by INEC as voting unit from wards. This is another, deliberate fraud conducted by INEC in collaboration with Urobos and Ijos residing in the Warri Federal Constituency. And they just pick up coordinate that is not existing from any community. They just plot it from rivers and forests where we don't have structures or habitation. Now, what would be the rationale behind that? This is just to make up the numbers so that they can surpass their landlords who owns the Warri Federal Constituency. We have number 10 on the list, where INEC assumed population of different wards in the Warri Federal Constituency outside of the figures captured by the last conducted census, as we are yet to conduct a new census that should report a change in the population of the area. Of course, the only way to determine whether there is growth in population in any area is when, of course, census is conducted. So, where did INEC get the figure from to determine whether or not population has skyrocketed in one particular ward as against the other? But this is what we uncovered in this particular report. Number 12, we have INEC against our own guidelines, split wards with less than 50 units into 2 and up to 4 wards in some cases, as we have observed, while wards with over 50 and 100 units remain the same and unchanged. This is another deliberate fraud. As we know from INEC's own guideline, we're supposed to see, a spiral, jump in numbers of registered voters in a particular unit, leading to a split in that ward. But that is not what we've come to see. That wards containing more units remain the same, but others with fewer units were, duplicated into 3 or 2. For example, you'll find, even when we go into the practical, that some wards even contain 9 units as against, their own guidelines. Now let's go to number 13. Majority of the new wards created by INEC failed to meet the required number of units, voting strength of voter register record of INEC to make a ward. And lastly, on number 14, we have ward created on our lands and communities cannot be renamed with strange names that are not in existence, but should be named with the aboriginal names of the communities making up the units of such ward. This is a simple understanding that even if you are going to split a particular ward into 2, you cannot name it with a name that is alien to the communities forming that ward. You have a situation where most of the communities that form a particular ward in Egbema 1 or 2 in Warri North, They are all from Ishekri communities like Youngtown, Obeda, Ebroimi. But yes, these communities were renamed and placed under Egbematu. Egbematu has nothing to do with Obeda, so why should you name a word Egbema 1 or Egbema 2 when the communities forming that word carry different name entirely? So these are some of the fraud that we've uncovered from the verification that we carried out using the same coordinate provided by INEC when they provided these documents of proposed word delineation. So now let's go into the practical aspect of this exposition and show you how we came up with this revelation by plotting the coordinate provided by INEC in its word delineation exercise. And don't forget that INEC told us that they went to the various community, they went on ground to carry out this delineation exercise, providing these coordinates as you can see from your screen. But we're going to prove them wrong, that actually they didn't visit many of these communities and obviously probably cooked up this document and presented to us. So let's go to arrow A3, that's registration area number 3, and look at what we have right there. Now we have registration number 03 on our screen, and it is named Beni Kukru, Kenyak Bene. Now, as you can see from your screen, we have a column for the legal Aboriginal communities, and we have a column for the fictitious community. What this means is that these fictitious communities column contain the numbers of communities that INEC gave to us in its word proposal. And these are the coordinates that comes with these units. Now we are going to plot these coordinates to find out whether these names provided by INEC are actually the case. If not, we're going to get the actual community that we're listing on the Aboriginal legal community. So go with me as I plot the number 3 on this list now. And we have the name given by INEC for number 3 is Nei Bralabo Ama community. And the coordinate for that is 5.70724667. That's 5.7072467. If you're plotting with me, put a comma and a space, and you go to the longitude, 5.2222317. That is 5.2222317, I beg your pardon. So let's see what comes out from these coordinates. Now, as you can see from your screen, we have Daly Creek. Now, Daly Creek came out from what we plotted, different from what INEC gave to us, which means that INEC lied. Now, Daly Creek, as you can see from your screen, is actually located somewhere around the Ubo Budu. And Daly Creek, we also have Lee Creek alongside that area, and this is the creek they are talking about right here. So clearly, INEC committed a fraud by giving us a fictitious name for this particular coordinate. So we move to our next one. Now we're just going to take one example because we don't have the whole day. Other than that, we could just plot all the coordinates. So let's go to arrow A03, that is registration area number 3, and scroll down to registration, where we have registration number 13, 14, 15, yes, 17. So, but let's do something with 16. Now, 16, we have a name provided by INEC as Ikparagbene 2. Now, we're going to plot the coordinate for Ikparagbene 2. If you're with me or you've downloaded your Google Earth, you could do this with me. Now, let's go. We have 5.7738.546. That is 5.7738.546. That's for the latitude. Now you put a comma, a space, and you go to the longitude, 5.2799578. If the technical team got that, so let's load the screen and see what we got. Now, what we have right here is Harrison Point. And Harrison Point is nothing close to the name given by INEC. So INEC obviously lied with the coordinates they provided. So these are the proof we need to tell the world that INEC has committed a fraud in this proposed ward delineation for the Warri Federal Constituency. So, but let's move further to some other areas. Let's go to registration area number 4. Registration area number 4, we're going to look at some of the coordinates there to find out whether or not INEC complied with its own guideline or did the right thing with the coordinate they provided. Yes, we're there at registration number 4. Now, what they call the ward is Jebiri. Of course, as you can see, this word name is alien to the area, which is mostly Ishekiri area. After plotting the coordinates here, we find out that these are the names that came up from the coordinate, different from what INEC gave us. And INEC told us that they went on ground to plot these coordinates. So if actually they did so, why should we have this level of discrepancies between what they gave us and what the coordinate is giving us? So let's plot one of the coordinates to find out, how true these coordinates are. Let's plot for number 3, and for number 3 we have 5.48 48193. That's for the latitude. Put a comma, a space, and go for the longitude. 5.58 77802. Now let's load that and see what comes out of it. Norman Creek. As you can see, Norman Creek is the Aboriginal legal name attached to this coordinate. Yet, INEC changed that and gave it a different name. Now let's go to the registration area and show you what INEC called this Norman Creek. INEC called Norman Creek, which of course is around the Bokodo River, they call it Oweyebene 1 Okorowari. This is a typical fraud that is deliberate in nature. But let's continue also to another registration area. Let's move to registration area 9. That's RA09. We're also going to do some practical example there and find that, some of the fraud that INEC has committed. Now, this fraud that we're talking about, they are in multiple levels. But we're just going to pick some few practical examples to show you what INEC did. Now, as you can see, INEC called this word Kunukunu Ma. And like I've also seen, or from what we have discovered, this name, used in naming this word, is alien to the area that we're going to be seeing. But this was the fictitious name that INEC gave to us. And these are the coordinates that came with it. So we're going to pick one of them. Let's say we go for number 3. We have, say, Turububo Kunukunuma. And the coordinate for that is latitude 5373343. Longitude 5.583759. So we're going to load that and see what comes out of it. Here we go. So what we have is Tofagbene, which is also different from what we saw in the document INEC presented to us. So INEC did not do a thorough job. INEC did not even, observe due diligence. INEC failed in applying its own guidelines, and INEC committed all of this fraud against the people of the Warri Federal Constituency, particularly the Ishekiri people. Now, what is the essence of all of this fraud being committed? This is in a bid to rob the Ishekiri people of their political rights in the Warri Federal Constituency. When you plot all of these coordinates, they want to have the majority where they don't even have the majority. But let's move further now to some other areas. Let's go to registration area number 14. For registration area number 14, we're going to also plot the coordinates there and find out the true position of things. Now, as you can already see, I will do that explanation again in case you're just joining in. We have the fictitious communities, we have the Aboriginal communities as listed. And these fictitious names are the names that INEC give to us alongside these coordinates. So we're going to plot one of the coordinates. Number 3, for example. I don't know why I go with number 3, but let's go with number 3 again. We have 5.48, 35, 95, 495. That's for the latitude. So move to the longitude. We have 5.614, 74, 5933. So let's look that up and see what comes out of it. Norman Creek. And Norman Creek is located, on Odeshekiri land. And how come we have Norman Creek being created as a word for the Jaws? So that tells you the level of fraud has been created. But let's even go back to the registration area. We've seen clearly now that this Norman Creek is different from the name given to us by INEC. Instead of Norman Creek, INEC gave us Yorayegbe, if I can get that word. This is an alien name to this particular land. And yet, they named this word under Okenerigo. Okenerigo is a lot of miles away from Odeshekiri. And Odeshekiri is in Warri South. Yet, they are picking Odeshekiri from Warri South to make up the word in Warri Southwest. So that is the level of fraud. Because sometimes when people say, oh, they gave us 5 words, they took 10 words, a lot of persons don't understand the gravity, the depth of the fraud that has been committed until you get to see something like this. But let's move away from that. You can see that this fraud was duplicated in multiples to form this word. So we just took one example to show you that at your free time, you can continue to plot some of these coordinates and see more for yourself. So let's go to registration area number 10. For registration area number 10, we want to also find out the job that INEC did compared to our verification, what we find out. So as you can see from your screen, we have the column for the fictitious community and the Aboriginal community. The fictitious community the community is provided by INEC and the coordinate alongside. So we're not doing anything different or abnormal. We're just picking the coordinate to verify what INEC has done. So we're going to go, for example, with number 4. Let me not go with number 3 this time around. So we have INEC calling number 4 Omon Community Kurutie, and we're going to plot the coordinates at 5.34, 6297. That's for the latitude. You put a comma, a space, and you go for the longitude. 5.58, 2376. So let's load that up and find out what it brings out. So let's check this place and see what name is there. Kalagu Camp. Now, Kalagu Camp, I don't know if you can zoom a little in. Okay, yes, landscape like that. Go, zoom out, let's see what's there. Now, this is the Forcados River. And if you go this way, you find Odeshekiri. Somewhere, this is Forcados River that links to Uborodo if you go through the sea. And if you take it backward, you get to Odeshekiri. Now, between that Forcados River, we have Burutu along that line. So this is where they imported this particular coordinate from to form this particular unit, which is different from what it ought to be from INEC record. Now, the document INEC gave to us gave it a different name. Let's go to that registration area number 10 again and see for ourselves what is there. The name given is Omon Community Kuruti, but clearly that is Kalagu Camp. Maybe we'll try another one again. We also have something around the Oleri Forest, around Udu. That is what the coordinate gave to us, but INEC gave us Idigbene. INEC gave us Idigbene. So we're going to plot the coordinate for Idigbene, 5.45, 3746. And of course, the longitude 5.77, 0543. Now let's find out what comes out of it. Of course, this is Oleri here. Clearly, you can see And of course, this is around Udu local government area. So how can you bring Udu local government area into Warri Southwest to form units that make up, a fictitious ward? And this is how they claim majority, whereas they lack the numbers to form that majority. So this is another fraud being committed by INEC. So if we want to go in terms of categorizing, we'll be looking at importation. They imported from different local governments into the Warri Southwest local government to form the various units and wards that we have there. They are importing from Edo in the area of Warri North and Ondo State, and also they are importing from Ugeli South, they are importing from Udu, all to form, they are also importing from Burutu, all to form units and ward in Warri Southwest. We're still working with Warri Southwest, and we're using registration area number 14. And we want to check some other coordinates there and show you practically what INEC did or the fraud that INEC committed. Now, as we can see from our screen, let's start up with number 30 on the list under registration area number 14. And let's plot the coordinate. Of course, as you can see, this second column is the fictitious names INEC gives to us or communities, and the first column there is the aboriginal one or the letter one we saw from the coordinate we plotted, but we're just going to do it again. 5.3857 59087. That's for the latitude. And we go for the longitude, 5.69671697. So let's load that up and see what comes out of it. Now, you can see this is Bekebo, and of course, Bekebo is not even in Warri Southwest. Bekebo is not in Warri South, but yet INEC plots that for Warri Southwest and created a word for them and gave it a different name. Now, if we go back to the registration area, you see the wrong or fictitious name that INEC give to that particular unit. INEC give it Say Big Bene. Say Big Bene was the name that INEC gave to it. And like we have said, there are lots of them. You can see different fraud being committed by INEC. But let's also move further now to 37. So we're going to try for 37. We have INEC coordinate number 37 as Uturubene, and the coordinate for that we're going to give to you now 5.374123.228. For the longitude, we have it at 5.776566.209. So let's load that up again and see what comes out of it. You can see Okwemo, and Okwemo is not even in Warri South or Warri Southwest. Okwemo should be in, look, this is Okwagbe, for example. All these are Ugeli South area being imported into Warri Southwest to create a word for the Ijaws. And these are the fraud that INEC has committed. So you can see clearly from the screen, we have Okwemo, different from what INEC gives to us. If you go back to the registration area again now, you see that the name that INEC gave to Okwemo, which is not in Warri South, no, in Warri South, because we are treating Warri Southwest, and they call that number 37, they call it Oturubene. You can imagine. So let's still move further to number 40, and number 40 there, INEC called that Putubu community. Putubu community. I cannot imagine what that means, but let's go to the coordinates. For Putubu community, we have it at 5.402012.734. And for the longitude, we have it at 576376016. So let's load that up again. What comes out of that? Quickly now. So this is Otutuama, somewhere around Ugeli South as well, and that is what it gave us. So you can see clearly that INEC has been in the business of committing fraud, not just during elections, but they showed that heavily during this ward delineation exercise that they have done in the Warri Federal Constituency. So they model things up, pick from different locations, pick from different local government area, and model it up to Warri Southwest. Again, another thing you discover is that many of these coordinates, even in Warri Southwest, were falling, inside the middle of a river or in a deep forest where there is no structure, no inhabitant. But this is what INEC gives to us as a word. And at the end of the day, they tell us that, the Jos have got more population over Ishekiri. But of course, with this revelation, I want to believe that people from Delta Central, Ugeli, they are also monitoring this or following it up. The political office holders there, they may want to do something about this because fraud is already being committed. And what about the National Boundary Commission? They want to look at this as well. The Population Commission, who is in charge of census, we want to look at this as well to see the level of fraud that INEC has committed. The government at the state, even at the federal level, need to take this seriously because, of course, many of the names that even appear as Bene or what have you, they are not even known to this area. They have been changed or manipulated in the Google map. But if you are using the Google Earth map, you will find a difference in what they have done thus far. So quickly, let's move away from Warri Southwest. I think we've done quite a lot of work here. At your spare time, you can go through this and do more plotting and see for yourself. So let's move to Warri North and see some other fraud committed in Warri North by INEC. Now, for Warri North, technical team, if you can work with me, let's move to Warri North. And of course, let's start off with RA 5, that's registration area number 5. Now from registration number area 5, as you can see from your screen, we have just around 8 units or communities making up this particular ward. And I can imagine this being the case for many of the wards for Ishekiri. We should have, in fact, more than 40 wards. But this is what INEC did to create several multiple wards for the Jos in Warri North. So we're going to look at one or two coordinates right here. Let's plot for, let's say, number 1. We have 6.14 for the latitude, 6.14, 699. And of course, for the longitude, we have 5.10, 6953. So let's load that up. Now, this is what the coordinate is giving us. Agburu Beneka Kuku. And when you look at these dot lines, this is the demarcation of boundary point between Delta State and Ondo State, which means that these guys, they are importing communities or units from Ondo State into Delta State in Warri North to create this particular unit to form the word for the Jos. And this is another type of fraud that they have committed, just like we've seen in Warri Southwest, importing from different local government. They're also importing from outside Delta State in another local government into the Warri North local government to create this particular unit to form the ward. So let's go back to the registration area to see for ourselves the name that INEC gave to this one that we've seen clearly from the coordinates. Now, they gave it Awamba. You can see clearly that Awamba is fictitious. Awamba has nothing to do with what the coordinate gives to us. The coordinate gave us Agburu Beneka Kuku. That's what the coordinate gave to us. So that's one example from the registration area number 5. So let's move to registration area number 8, because we're just going to be taking one or two examples from each of the words to show you what is ongoing with INEC word delineation. And from what we can see after plotting these coordinates provided by INEC, majority of the communities found here were more of Ishekiri communities and the larger communities in that particular order. So the name Egbema is even alien to this name forming this particular word. So let's go to number 39 on the list to find out what the coordinates will give to us. So we just use one example from this particular word. 39, yes, we are 39. And INEC called 39 Dauju Wogbene, that's what they call it. So let's go to the latitude. We have 6.12, 1089. The longitude is 5.037,948. So let's load that up and see what it brings out. Now, what we have there is Asiboro. And Asiboro is, even inside a creek, there's no structure, there's no building, no habitat in this particular place. As you can see, that's the middle of the creek as we have it there. Clearly, this is the kind of fraud that INEC is committing to create the numbers of unit and ward that they are creating for the Ijos who are residing in Warri Federal constituency. But of course, we've seen the name right here already, and the name is Asiboro. So go to the registration area. Let's see for ourselves what INEC called that again. INEC called that 39, I said. Okay, INEC called that Dauju Wogbene. So that's the kind of fraud that INEC is committing. And that's a creek, of course, in Ondo State, not here in Delta State. So they are importing communities and coordinates from Ondo State into Delta State to form this unit and ward. So let's move quickly fast down to registration area number 13. I'll take just one coordinate there as well as we move on. Registration area number 13. Okay, now let's go to number 50 on the list. Number 50 on the list. Okay, we have, this particular coordinate at number 50, and they call it Ogbenbiri land. Now, Ogbenbiri land, we have for that a latitude of 6.149918, and the longitude is 5.205127. So let's load that up again and see for ourselves where we have that coordinate. So you can see also this one is also in the middle of nowhere, in the forest, in the middle of a river, and there is no inhabitant, no structure anywhere. But these are the kind of coordinate or unit or numbers of communities that INEC is creating to form ward. And what is the name we can see there? Uboba. Uboba is in Edo State, not in Delta State. So why should INEC import communities from Edo State or Edo State into Delta State to form units that make up these numbers of ward that they claim they did on ground? Because they told us that they went on ground. A lot of people make arguments on this, say that, oh, INEC did a thorough job, INEC went on ground. But from what we can see, INEC did not do a thorough job, INEC did not go on ground, and INEC did not do their due diligence. So let's move away from that to a last one under warri not, if time permits us to do so. We have registration area 18. Registration area 18. We'll take one coordinate from there too before moving forward. Now, registration area number 18, we will take number 16 on the list, number 6, I beg your pardon, on the list, and we have for that a coordinate for that latitude of 5.9858,189. Now we go to the longitude. We have 4.9787916. So let's load that up again. So what we have there, as you can see, okay, is coming up as Shekelewu. Okay, let's move to the registration area and see what INEC called that. Okay, that's for number 6. They called it Okoro and Nimi communities. Okoro and Nimi communities. So what we can tell from here, instead of just calling it Shekelewu, they brought Shekelewu probably down somewhere, but they didn't have to name it Shekelewu. They are duplicating Shekelewu into different communities, but giving it different kind of names. So one Shekelewu can be duplicated into 20 and giving fictitious name that is not on any map anywhere. No public document have these kind of names. And these names that we can see, they are actually from Ondo State and not in Delta State. They are being imported into. Don't forget that Ijos are also in Ondo State, so they kind of merge what they have in Ondo State into Delta State to create the kind of award that we are seeing here. We have that of Elijah as well, who owns Awoye, and these Awoye are also being used as coordinates to form units under the ward being created for the Jaws in Warri North. One thing that is peculiar with Warri North that we can also take note of is the changes in the names. They just pick the coordinate and give it multiple names and duplicate it as they like. They also did something quite instructive too. They pick Ishekiri communities, for example, and group them together, give it a different name, and give it a different name for the ward and call it an Ijaw ward. And that is how they create multiple wards. For example, we have areas where you have the Obeda, the Youngtown, and what have you. But when you look at what they call that, I think we saw that at Egbema 1 or 2 or so. If we can get to Egbema 2, I think so, we have that there. So they just duplicate this, okay? We have Old Nana, as you can see here, Old Nana, Adabrasa, Ogwan Guli, and all of that, Okorokoto Creek, all these are growing land, yes. So we have even up to 4 Egbemas. And as far as we know, Egbema is supposed to be 1, if probably they want to duplicate, maybe 2 Egbema. The Egbemas are more inside the Shekelewu and Upuama. Yet we have them duplicating different communities from Ishekiri homeland to create this unit that we have right here. So this is the gravity or level of fraud that we have seen from this work done by INEC. And of course, we're going to move off away from Warri North and move into Warri South shortly.
So right now we'll be talking about the proposed ward delineation coordinate review for Warri South local government. What we've seen so far has been a monumental fraud being done to Shekiri people in Warri South, Warri North, and Warri South. For Warri South, we look at RA02, for instance, the Kobulwoma. It has been established in court that the Ijaws have nowhere in Warri South. However, well recognized places like Kere community, we all know, and so many of us grew up in giving birth to in Central Hospital. We all know Central Hospital Warri, we all know the police headquarters, we all know Ugori community, Warri Saple Road, and all of that. Those were the areas that INEC decided to give fictitious name Bolwoma. Bolwoma is alien to us. We reminded you people when we started this whole thing that we used the Warri map, we used the Delta State map, we used the map of SPDC, which have been captured since the creation of Nigeria, 1960 down to Midwest. Also, you will see where they call Ogboroje ward. Ogboroje ward is alien to the communities actually put in there. All of these places they call Ogboroje RA4 is actually Ishekiri communities. The Aboriginal communities in that area, are the timber and wood market in Pesu. All of those areas are Pesu areas. They have all been captured and legally known as Pesu. But however, instead of you seeing Robert Road that we all grew up to know, instead of you seeing Dawn Market, instead of you seeing Adams Town, instead of you seeing Central Hospital area, Mabiaku Road that we all know, we are now seeing them calling something fictitious names like Agbasi, Ibudu, Ibudu 2, Ibudu 1. We all know Ibudu. We don't want INEC to bring crisis where there is no crisis. The law has already been decided. When you want to delineate according to Supreme Court judgment, what we expect from INEC as a government institution is to also respect the court judgments as regards those areas. It should also respect the legal names of places. We do not understand how INEC brought about Bolwoma in Warri South. Bolwoma community is not known to us. The area we all know is the area of Okere and Ugori land, the police central hospital area. If you go there is nowhere like Bolwoma here. If you go to police area command and all those areas, there's nowhere like Bolwoma here. Also for RO4, you see where they call the place Agbaisi. Agbaisi is unknown to us. What we know in Warri, the legal names of those places is First Marine Gate, Second Marine Gate, Third Marine Gate. That is what every Warri man knows. INEC should not come and change Warri for us. The court has barred the jaws of Obujo or any other Ijaw from laying claims anywhere in Warri South. Also, what we see today where they call some places Otowodo, Omonie, the Warri local government has already legislated on it as illegal names. You can't just come tomorrow, I want to call the name of the place, I just look at my area, the way I live, and I say, I want to call that place Shaibene because I seem to have guns, or I have power, or I have influence, or I have pipeline contracts. We don't want that. We want peace, and INEC to do the right thing. Legal documents, while INEC is doing the right thing as regard the obedience of court judgments, as regard the INEC delineation, they should also obey court judgments in all areas in the 3 Warri Federal Constituency, from Warri South to Warri North to Warri Southwest. You should obey the Supreme Court judgments. We also have for the Omadino areas, for Warri South and for Warri North. They should obey the judgment of Okenigo. They should obey the Supreme Court judgment of Ubakokodia. They should obey the court judgment on the ownership of Egwazis. People don't own land by guns. People don't own lands by just changing names. INEC should mark and bridge judgments with judgments, legality with legality, court judgments with court judgment, verified documents with documents. We've brought out everything. We cannot see where you want to delineate in Warri Federal Constituency, and you start going to Ondo State to bring communities, you start going to Edo, you start going to different areas in Delta State. We want peace in Warri. We want the world to know that the entire area of Warri South has been one area in Delta State that has been properly well litigated, issues settled long ago. INEC need more documents. We've given them some documents, they need more. As regard the ownership of the entire Warris, we are going to give it to them. We want the world to see the fraud. They've seen the fraud. If you need more of it, we'll give it to you. Thank you, and God bless you.